The importance of biodiversity. In this lesson, we'll be covering biodiversity, the need for biodiversity, the terms vulnerable, threatened, extirpated, endangered, and extinct species, keystone species, species extinction and biodiversity, and natural and human causes of extinction. Biodiversity is the variety of life in an ecosystem. It's measured by counting the number of species in a specific habitat or ecosystem, and its measurement is referred to as species richness. So if you have a lot of biodiversity, then you are very species rich. If you have a whole bunch of different species in an area, then you have a high amount of biodiversity. So same idea. Typical rainforests have the highest biodiversity of any ecosystem. So for example, the Peruvian rainforest has 283 species of tree in a single hectare, while a similarly sized forest elsewhere will typically support only about 10 to 20 species of tree. So you can see it's well over 10 times the amount of species in any given area. So what is the value of biodiversity? Well, the social value of diversity is that humans depend on biodiversity for their survival. For instance, it cleans the air we breathe. It recycles and purifies the water we drink. It absorbs waste we produce, and it stabilizes and moderates climate. Economically speaking, biodiversity provides enormous economic and community benefits through the use of natural resources for things like forestry, farming, fishing, recreation, and energy. So if we are sacrificing biodiversity, we're potentially jeopardizing the economic value of that particular system. For instance, overfishing, clear-cutting huge amounts of forest, etc. These things are all going to hinder the economic value of that particular area. At-risk species. Species who are at risk can be classified as either vulnerable, threatened, extirpated, endangered, and extinct. You've probably heard of extinct. I'm sure you heard of that one. Endangered, you've probably heard of. The other three, maybe not so much. So let's have a look at what those are. So if you're vulnerable, you are a species that is at risk because of declining numbers. So an example of that is the gray fox. Threatened species is any species that is likely to become endangered if the factors that make it vulnerable are not reversed. So the peregrine falcon is a threatened species. Extirpated means that it's a species that no longer exists in one part of a country but can be found in others. So for instance, the grizzly bear can be found in certain parts of the US, but not in other parts. If you're endangered, you're a species that is close to extinction in all parts of the country or in a significantly large area. So things like the panda, tiger, these things are all endangered species. A manatee is an example of an endangered species, and due to boat collisions, entanglements in fishing gear, and habitat loss, these gentle creatures have become endangered. So these guys are just swimming around, doing their thing, and unfortunately, they're running into a lot of boats, and these boats are killing a large number of manatees every year, which in combination of their lower birth rate makes these number of manatees go down significantly. Extinct. Extinct means the species is not found anywhere anymore. So for instance, the Tasmanian tiger, the passenger pigeon, the dodo bird, dinosaurs, these are all extinct species. But what's the big deal about the passenger pigeon? It's known as a keystone species, which is a species which has strong interactions with other species and affect their health and survival significantly. So what that means is that they're a species that impacts many other species significantly. Another example of a keystone species is the bat. Now, bats are considered pests because they can be a nuisance and are considered to be scary. This leads people to kill them and destroy their homes. However, bats are very important. They eat moths and pollinate flowers. As a result, areas that have bats removed now have fewer flowers and have too many moths, which destroy crops. So by removing the bat species, we're going to have a negative impact on these other species as well. And it's very hard to identify important keystone species until the ecosystem has collapsed due to their absence. Animals like the passenger pigeon might seem important after they're gone, but unfortunately there's no way to get them back. Now if we focus back on extinction, extinction again refers to a species that has died out and is no longer found anywhere. Although it is a natural process that occurs over thousands and millions of years, human activity has drastically increased the rate of extinction. So this guy right here is a woolly mammoth. It's generally thought that they went extinct due to overhunting by humans. Other examples include the dodo bird, talked about dinosaurs, and then the passenger pigeon, which we've already mentioned. There are numerous natural causes of extinction, including competition with other organisms, environmental disasters like an asteroid impact, climate change, shortage of food, low reproduction, high numbers of predators, and competition with an invading species. These are all natural causes of extinction. And throughout our history, there's been 5 major mass extinctions. So what I'd like you to do right now is pause the video and watch number 4, as it's going to chronicle those 5 major mass extinctions. Now, in addition to the natural causes, humans also can cause extinctions. Species extinction has risen significantly with the recent human population explosion over the last 200 years. Some of the main causes of human-caused extinction include invasion of habitats. So we're going to go into an area and wipe out all the species in it. Overhunting, pollution, habitat loss and fragmentation, removing resources, and introducing invading species. We talked about invading species right here, and this can be natural. Invading species can get to a place naturally. Humans can also introduce species through accidents as well as deliberately. People can bring certain species from one place to another because they think they look neat or they think they might be useful. A good example of an extinction caused by human activity is the Tasmanian tiger. Despite its name, these animals were striped marsupials, so they're more like kangaroos, not tigers. Native to mainland Australia and Tasmania, they were declared extinct as recently as the 1930s after a century of intensive hunting. They were generally being hunted for their striped coats. So let's summarize. Biodiversity involves the number of species in a given area, also known as species richness. It has significant social and economic value, and we can classify at-risk species based on whether they're vulnerable, threatened, extirpated, endangered, or extinct. Extinct species could also be keystone species, which are important species that impact other species in their area. And there are many natural and human causes of extinction. And that concludes our lesson on biodiversity.